I think I've got my reminders for every topic that I want to discuss. Hello, happy Monday. And some viewer questions. The first one was, and he asked me this, and it's like, wow, it'd be easier to just show it on a video than explaining it. How do I package bows? Well, I want you to study something. A cardboard triangle taped together up here. And so I calculate, I'll measure the width of the bow and then add maybe between a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch to the width of the bow. Then it depends on if they're just straight or recurved, whatever. And then, figure the sides. 2 of this distance and then 1 of this distance, a little wider. Cut out a strip of cardboard. And then I use a Sharpie to mark where the bend points are, the bend points. And then I use a sharp edge of a countertop for a break where I just line up the Sharpie marks and then just push with my hands along it, making the crease and then finish it. And now I've got the makings of a triangle. And so you got that. It's not rocket science. If the cardboard is thinner, because I dumpster dive. I don't buy cardboard. I recycle, reuse, and repurpose. If it's thinner cardboard, not this is stiff, thick cardboard. I wouldn't need to do this. I'll make a second one, and that'll go on top of that, and then tape. But before then, it's like, how do I do my tips? And I've done them in a lot of ways. I've made little cardboard triangles and, had tabs and taped them down there. But I've gotten to where I just do this. I just fold it and then tape that shut, and then take a strip of cardboard bent over the end and then tape it around there. And then I would add this. And to add trickiness, before I use my packing tape, because Sharpie doesn't really stick to packing tape, my return address and to the sender on the cardboard, and that makes a pretty secure package that I've found. They're either going to break it, which they do extremely rarely. I've had it too in hundreds of bows, or it'll get there. In the case of Rob in the UK, 33 days it's taken. Where that bow I mailed to the UK made it to London, and then it went back to Chicago, and it's just been in transit to the next facility for the past 15 days or so. So hopefully the people, see, I was polite, realized, wait a minute here, Chicago is nowhere near the UK. Put it back on the damn plane. I'm telling you, they're packing monkeys into the cockpits of fighters nowadays. That is my packaging. It's time intensive. I mean, when I was selling paddle bows predominantly, this is years ago, we lived near a shipping place, and I would buy cases of tubes. There would be 48 tubes, and I'd buy case after case after case, stick the paddle bow in there, put the plastic end caps, tape them shut, dress them, and mail them off. And I was buying those tubes for about $2 a piece. So, yeah. Whereas my way, there's a lot of time involved in packaging. But I don't stick it to you. In many cases, I pay for the shipping. Okay, number 2. There was a young feller who, first I'm gonna preface this. Back in the old days when I was young, dinosaurs roamed the earth. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't even know that there were books out there how to make bows. And literally, some of us worked for a couple of years, breaking, misadventure, until finally things clicked. In my case, I found The Bows and Arrows of the Native Americans by Jim Ham, and that got me going. But with YouTube now, it's wonderful. We're not trying to hang on to our knowledge. We're trying to spread it so more people are involved in this hobby. So you don't have to work for years at it. We were having fun, obviously, so it wasn't like we were in gulag. But this young feller worked on a challenging stave, knots and twists, and it didn't work out. And so he was like, in the comment, paraphrasing, I'm going to try with red oak. Do you have any advice? And my advice is, that's good advice. You know, you don't want to go from 0 to 1,000 immediately. You're going to be disappointed. And so red oak, or this one, stupid hiccups. You know, it's a nice homogeneous thing. I picked out good growth rings. There's no surprises from the wood itself. There's no surprises. I'm not going to have some mysterious internal defect. I mean, maybe, but I don't see it. So you've got the basis of a good bow. And it's not the same, you know, as working down to a growth ring or whatever, bending, heat bending, propeller twist and all that out, but you're learning tillering. You don't build a bow, you tiller it, right? And so I would back it. I told him in the response to his comment, my advice is you want to have almost a 100% certainty as long as you tiller it carefully. You're almost at 100%. If you make a reasonably weighted red oak bow, 30 to 50 pounds, you could have it less if you want, but you're almost guaranteed you're going to have success if you back it. I'm at 100% certainty this thing is going to work out. Nothing's 100%, but you're as close as possible. What are your choices in backing? You can sinew back. Now I'm going to say, stupid hiccups, I'm just going to power through this. Excuse my hiccups. Even the ugliest, most uneven, thinnest sinew job will protect the back of the bow. It will. This stuff is forgiving. If you're going for a power layer on a horn bow, of course you have to do a good job, and it has to be multiple layers. But if you're just going to back a bow to protect it, you could do a crappy sinew job and it'll protect it. As long as you overlap. That's it. Then there's rawhide backing. Then there's buying cloth, rattlesnake printed or copperhead cloth backing. You know, strips from a bow making supply house. And they're all going to pretty much guarantee your success. Complexity. Sinews at the top, just because you have to pound and prepare it. Rawhide and then cloth. Cut a strip of cloth, glue it on with Titebond 3. You're good to go. Expense-wise, rawhide's probably at the top, then sinew, then cloth. You could run the Jo-Ann Fabrics or whatever fabric store is near you. Walmart sells fabric, and get camouflage fabric. Or paisley if you're so inclined. But yeah. Now to make it even better, important. Here's kind of a board. Now this has a curve in it. So when I clamp it and heat harden it over a grill and I'm going to get into a really good way of heat hardening, or a heat gun or whatever, it puts a reflex into the back bend. But I could do that by just clamping it to a board and blocking it up a little bit. Don't go crazy. But here's the fine point. You see, I've got a curve, and it's not just a block in the center, so there's no airspace between the bow and the form. So if you're going to do this, you got it blocked up in the center, the tips are clamped down. Start in the center and do this. Because if you heat harden one limb first, because it's clamped, it's under pressure, this one's going to get all the bend and you're going to probably wind up with a straight limb. So you have to do it evenly, starting from the center and go out like this. Not just one limb and then do this limb. Okay, I'm on a roll. That's why I'm not going to stop because of damn hiccups. Oh, I'm like a allergic mess here. What else? The fellow asked about making gull wing bows. bending with heat, right? Shaping with heat. You don't need forms. You can just use your knee. The big thing is, now I'm going to explain why this isn't a clamp here. When you're doing it, don't just do this, do this. And then make sure that, like when you bend it on the limbs, you're not twisting it. If you happen to twist it, and I'll get into the mechanics of this, you look at it, and this limb has to go this way. Take a pencil and draw an arrow on it. That means you're going to twist it, heat it again, and twist it this way. Always put an arrow on there because you don't want to compound it. And it is extremely easy to put a twist when you're bending. It takes some practice to get it straight. Or else if you have a propeller twist, you just drew an arrow. It shows you which way to put pressure on it when you do it. Raise your hand if you've got a kitchen. Raise your hand if you've got a gas stove, a gas range. Did it in my last house. That's why I'm doomed to use a charcoal grill outside in the winter, or my chimenea, or a heat gun. Because believe it or not, that item in your kitchen, that gas range, or that electric range, it's one of the best, most consistent heat sources for shaping gull wings or recurves or whatever. That element is beautiful. When I'm correcting, because there's a little too much bend in this limb, so you see I've got it clamped and I'm going to have to use a heat gun, that only works on one side. Unless I can sneak it down there, but I don't want to get the edges. With an electric range, all I'd have to do is rotate that thing over the element until both sides were hot, put that tip down there and just push and hold it till it cools. I've caused myself problems by moving into a house that has a gas stove. I miss my electric range, and that's why I'm doing more steam bending on gull wing bows than heat bending. When I had an electric range, boy, you couldn't stop me. Rotating that bow and arrow shafts to straighten them over that element till the whole thing is hot. The whole thing is hot instead of just one side. And bending away. Using an oven mitt or something, because the surface will be really hot on your leg. But yeah, I'm looking at this thing. Well, no, I'm going to talk about this after the next thing. Okay, so these are tendons. This is my baggie. I don't use so much glue when I'm sinew backing that this is sitting around because it's an organic substance. It can get kind of nasty after a while. It can get funky. And so this is kind of a twofold thing. I've discovered, because when I sinew back, and I've done sinew backing in multiple ways, and I've determined through experience, because I've sinew backed a couple bows in my lifetime, it's the best way to do it. Just because it's so convenient, it's fast. You don't need even a heat source to do it. If you can like have warm water outside and the sunshine will heat it up. But I've got my mixture of, it takes, again, experience, you know, to get your mixture right. Glue from your glue pot goes in here, and a little bit of water just to water it down a little bit, but you want to see amber. You want to see if it sits at 60 degrees. It should gel. When you're sinew backing, you should get a little bit of hide glue buildup on your fingers, not like when you're dipping it in the pot, you know, and then you have to have a butter knife to scrape it off because your hands are like a glue glob. Not as extreme. You can also just kind of feel it. You know, after a while you get a feeling just by this, or just by squeezing it and seeing how viscous it is. Experience. But as long as it's a nice amber when you're looking at it, there's enough glue in there to work. Now, when I first started using my wet method, that I rediscovered. I didn't invent this. I'm sure many people have done this in the past in some form, primitive societies. But I'd have my glue water in here and I'd take a big bundle of sinew and plop it down in there. And it'll sit for hours. And so you better believe that when you're pulling the sinew out of the baggie, it's going to be more pliable and more wet than if you're dipping it in your hot glue and then putting it on the bone and getting another dry bundle and putting it in. This stuff is more supple and it sticks faster. Once you get the scheme of I've sized my bow, how long do I wait on that last sizing layer before I start sinew backing? That determines how sticky those things will be, you know, and how you do this. But this is the important point that I need to carry, or you need to carry away, is that in the beginning, they were swimming in here. There was a lot of gluey water in my sinew bundles, and they would like swim around and flop around and stuff. But I've gotten to the point where I have just a little bit more than enough liquid in here for that sinew bundle. It's almost like when I squish it like this, I'm not seeing any liquid above it. It's just soaked into those fibers. It typically takes me 2 go-arounds. I could have all the sinew I need for this bow already in here and it wouldn't be that problematic, but I don't want to have any left over in here when I'm done sinew backing. So I kind of go to the method. I guess that I've got half of what I need and then the other half is in there, right? And sometimes I have to add more glue and water, but it's so much easier and it's better to be able to pull them out without making them all a jumbled mess in here if you have less fluid in there, just enough. But they're slippery. They pull out. You've got this thing folded down, sitting in a little bit of water. You pour it out so you don't have the bag like go underneath that and dilute it. But if you put your hand on one side and push down and pull out 1, 2, 3 fibers, because typically I'll put 4 fibers at a time. I'll pull out 4 fibers at a time, consistent amount. If you've got one hand kind of pushing them down, you can pull them out here and build them. I've got 2 side by side. You do this stuff to kind of use your thumbnail to kind of get them straight and not crosswise. Then you take another one, you put it alongside, and then a 4th one alongside, and then you get them all resolved so they're not twisted. Then you just lay them on the bow and repeat, rinse and repeat. I can send you back this bow in a half an hour. Doing, you know, being careful because it just is faster. Instead of every single bundle waiting, they're already ready. And when you have less liquid, they stay more organized. Okay, on to the next thing. Okay, so, you know, I think it's like, wow, I'm working on 7 bows within a 3-week period or so. You know, and I don't want to use the word production line. If they were board bows, it'd be kind of production line. But these are stave-made bows. They all have their own personality. And they're made out of Osage, maple, elm, and hickory. 4 different woods. And they all had different amounts of natural ginks and stuff. So I'm like, look, I'm admiring this morning. It's like, wow. You know, on one hand, it's like, it's kind of different. It's like, cranking out the bows. But in another way, they all have their own personalities. Looking at this range of bows that I've got in various stages of completion, it's like, yeah, I've made a lot of bows, but I'm pretty pleased because I didn't skimp on tillering, I didn't skimp on shaping, I didn't skimp on sinew backing in order to get so many done. It's kind of cool. They all have different personalities. Now the first 2 5-bend elm bows are kind of similar. They're like brothers, but they're different. You know, then it went to the maple bow, which is a very distinct personality bow. And I, I like it. And then I've got this hickory bow, which hickory is freaking stubborn. It's got to be the most stubborn damn wood in the world. Now, 99 times out of 10, you put the same, you subject the limbs, let's say, to the same amount of heat or steaming or whatever, right? And you apply the same amount of pressure. And this works with you with your stove, right? You get it to the same heat. You basically find where that wood wants to stop bending. It's the same on both sides. You know, most of the time, it's never an issue getting a bow with different amounts of bend in each limb. But this hickory, man, hickory's always stubborn. It was like, I'm not going down easy, you know? So I have to take some bend out of this limb, and how I'm going to do it is basically the heat gun, which leads me in bringing the clamps down. You know, this talking about each bow has its own personality. This is the problem child, but sometimes the problem child rises above, you know, so this is going to be a good darn bow, which I've also learned that when it's 18 degrees and the wind is whipping, I can use my chimenea to heat harden this over a fire. I'm not saying flame or fire harden anymore because they're not touching the flames. They're heat hardening. Which leads me into another question that I can answer. It's like, I have steam bent this bow. When I subject it to heat, am I going to get the bend out of it? Is it going to return back to normal? Well, in the case of hickory, it's got a definite a bad sense of humor. It just might, but it didn't. You know, so you can steam bend stuff and then heat harden it, and chances are you're good. And with that, I think I just did a whole flurry of stuff. I'm going to get this thing arranged and then pound my sinews and send you back this. Hopefully I'll be done before noon. And then it's housework. I'm going to do some housework. But talking about personalities, I had the sinew for this bow, right? But I was looking at that 46-inch black locust bow, and it had dried to the point where I'm not going to use it, but I can still put the tip on the ground and do one of these things. It's like, wow, it's a cool little bow. This is the one I'm going to pile the sinew on. So I wound up on top of the layer of sinew I had already had on that little black locust bow. I put the sinew for this bow onto it. So I frickin' piled the sinew on that black locust bow. And yeah, that's going to be a BA. I'm not going to explain what that is because it'd be rough language, but that's going to be a BA little bow. Loves me some black locust. Well, with that, I shall say adieu, and hopefully you got a few things out of this. Have a good one. Whoa, 23 minutes.